Good afternoon. Today is April 19th, 2013. My name is Kla Brosius. I'm the expert today. I'm going to be teaching some techniques and strategies for my tools, techniques, and strategy class. I'm going to be teaching techniques of cognitive behavioral therapy. And the two techniques I'm going to be working on today, they are cognitive restructuring and behavioral activation. When you have these two techniques working together or being utilized, um, empirically they have been proven to be effective in treating depression. The first thing I'd like to also talk about before I talk about techniques and so forth is that CBT, what really it is. Based on research and other empirical studies, um, is an effective way in treating depression. That's the first and foremost thing. The second I'd like to say is that at the heart of CBT is the assumption that a person's mood is directly affected by his or her patterns of her thoughts. So in a nutshell, the way we think has an effect on how we behave and so forth. Another thing is that a negative dysfunctional thinking affects not just our mood, but affects our self, our sense of self, behavior, and even our physical state. So if we have some negative thoughts about life and how life should be, or about situations in our life, they affect not just the way we behave, but they affect our physical state, they affect our sense of self, and so forth. Now, I had a volunteer client for this, but she just decided to provide me with data that can be used as an example in this video. But she wasn't willing to be a part of the video recording, so I had to do the recording myself because I couldn't get any other person. Other people I tried didn't want to be on camera to do this recording. So, but I'm going to try to be very interactive with this whole recording and try to get other means to make it very more interesting. So the second thing I'd like to talk about is also about how CBT and depression and cognitive restructuring and so forth and behavioral activation all make sense. CBT has been, like I said, effective in treating depression, but not just that. They have been effective in treating relapses, or those who experience frequent relapses with depression. And a research that was done stated that about two out of three patients nowadays are being treated with medication for depression. But with the medication, they have been partially effective, and they have had lingering symptoms that stay around and doesn't really go away. But what CBT have been able to do is that they have been able to treat patients effectively to get rid of those lingering symptoms, because they make them understand what they're thinking and how their thoughts affects their body, so that way they'll be able to change the way they think. Because an important goal of CBT is that to recognize negative pattern thoughts, evaluate the validity, and replace them with a healthier way of thinking. That's the idea of CBT. So, but one thing we gotta understand is that for CBT to be effective, the individual has to take a fair share of the treatment process. So the person has to be willing to be involved in the whole process as well as the client. The counselor. So there are three things that was listed. I was looking at some research, and I'm looking at three things that needs to be part of it for for these techniques to work, which is cognitive restructuring and behavioral activation. The first thing is that a person has to be motivated. So if you lack motivation, there is no way you're going to change the way you think or change your thoughts, and eventually have your thoughts if you change your way of behaving or your mood and so forth. So that's the first thing. So one has to be motivated. Two, the person has to have an internal locus of control. What is that? Is that the extent to which an individual believe that they can control the events that affect them. So I said if you have that inner strength or control that you think that whatever affects you, you can change it, you have control of it, then there's one reason why CBT will be effective for you. And the last thing is that it has the capacity to be introspective. So looking into yourself and seeing that, yeah, maybe I take a look at myself and see what is not good for me and what I can do to change it. Because one thing, and going back to the goal of CBT, is to replace the negative thought process with a healthier one, or a healthier way of thinking. So that's all. I just want to give you an idea of CBT and how it works. So now we come into how can we effectively use techniques to help people or clients that have depression. Cognitive restructuring is an effective way based on empirical studies and so forth. I know we're only supposed to do one, but I figure if I was using CBT, I should have something to have cognitive and also with behavioral aspects. So if you blend them together, then you have CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Anyway, the first thing is that cognitive restructuring, what is it? Is a process in CBT where you identify and then you change inaccurate negative thoughts that contribute to the development of depression. So we identified the way you're thinking, the negative thinking or negative thoughts, and we change inaccurate negative thoughts, things that are not right for you, and which cause depression for a person. And how it works is that it's done in collaboration with the client and the counselor. So it has to be a collaborative effort. It's not just the counselor coming and being an expert and just saying everything. So both has to work together effectively to get this whole process going and going well. Another thing that happens is this is usually done in the form of a dialogue. So what happens is the counselor and the client will work together to dialogue about this whole process and see how best they can bring about this identification and changing process of these negative thoughts. But how does it work? So like my client, a volunteer gave me this information. So this is the scenario. She said she's in school and she had an evaluation because every block or rotation they have evaluations, and at the end of the block, a couple of their superiors evaluate them and then give them an evaluation, but they also take some final tests based on the entire block process. So after she had 10 evaluations, but she said of the 10 evaluations, 2 says she didn't do good at all, and she felt she was a failure because the 2 persons evaluated her and said she was a failure. So she felt she was going to fail, and she was not competent enough, she wasn't going to be good even if she completes. So what I did was we went back and looked at, because you have to change that negative that inaccuracy in that response, because you see the fact that she says she's a failure is the automatic thought. So it's inaccurate, it's not logical, and it's not effective, it's dysfunctional. So what we went was we looked at the entire, you have to look at the entire grade. So you look at the 10 evaluations. Of the 10, one or 2 persons said she didn't do well. So the second one we looked at was the final grade. And at the end of the final grade, she had a final score of a B+. And so looking at that, we can tell her, say, look, even though you had two teachers or 2 instructors that say you didn't do well, but overall you passed the course. So your statement is not right. The statement is inaccurate and is not logical. So that's what cognitive restructuring is all about, changing that person's way of thinking. And because if you don't change that, she feels she's not competent, she's not good enough, all those negative thoughts leads to depression. So if we can have her come to an understanding where that even though you had 2 evaluations that maybe weren't were not of what you expected. But of the 10, 8% said good things about you, and your final grades also said that you you did pass the rotation. So you're not a failure. And besides, if you look at the entire grades for the entire course since she's been in school, she's always been a success. So two evaluations not going right doesn't mean you're a failure. It doesn't mean you are not competent. So that's one way. But then, how do you evaluate this way of thinking? How do you evaluate this and make sure that this is uh, effective? Now, what you do is for this to be evaluated, what we have to happen is between sections, the patient will have to ask to monitor and write down the negative thoughts in a journal, and then evaluate the situation that called them up. So you write down when you have those negative thoughts, and then you evaluate why you had those thoughts. That's one way cognitive restructuring can be evaluated, and that's one way you can because the goal is to teach a client to be able to deal with this situation and overcome it, so that they don't have to be dependent on the therapist or the counselor every time, but they be able to look at situation and analyze situation and be able to change those. The core of CBT comes about right again to change those negative thoughts into a positive one, not positive, but a healthier way of thinking. That's the core. So at the end of the day, it prevents depression, because if she has those kind of thoughts again, she will be able to look back and evaluate them and look at where did they come up from, because that's the root. If she knows where they're coming from, then she can be able to do things to change the way of thinking and then have a healthier way of thinking. So she'll look at next time if she took a math test and she didn't do well, say on one of the exams, but she wouldn't think that because she failed one of the exams or one of the quizzes in the class that she's a failure or she's stupid, which are all automated thoughts which lead to depression. But she'll look at it and say, maybe because I didn't study well enough, that's why I didn't pass this test. So now that I didn't study well enough, I didn't pass this test. But if I look at all my grades, overall I passed. So at the end of the day, I'm not stupid. I'm smart, or I'm good enough to progress. So it will be able to help her overcome depression. Now, the second thing we want to talk about was because I said, with depression, what happens? A classic symptom of depression is that you start to lose interest in those things that you like. You start sleeping long hours when you're depressed. You'll be sleeping all day. You don't want to go out. The way you used to go hang with your friends, you wouldn't want to do those things anymore. The way you used to say go. If it was ladies, go out on a ladies' night, you wouldn't do those things anymore. If it was guys, the way you used to go play games with your friends, hang out with your friends, go out, you don't want to do that. You don't want to be bothered with anybody. You want to sit in your little seclusive place where it's just you. You don't want to be bothered with the outside world. The outside world doesn't like you. You think you don't fit in the outside world, and so forth. And those are all classic symptoms of depression. So what happens is behavioral activation is what comes into play. Because now you're thinking that, okay, I failed the math test, I'm not good enough, I'm stupid, so I don't want to be bothered with the outside world because the outside world doesn't like me, so I stay in line, I don't want to go shopping again, I'm not good enough, and then that's depression. So what happens is this is what you have to do. Alright, so behavioral activation comes into play. The first thing is behavioral activation. You have the patient engage in more often enjoyable activities and develop or enhance a problem-solving skill. So these, you see how two of them work together? Kind of make it so sweet and easy so that the client does not have to come to you every day with just simple things. They learn how to do things by themselves. And guess what? They'll be able to develop a sense of control over their thoughts, negative thoughts, and change those negative thoughts into healthier thinking. And at the end of the day, they will have those better way of behaving where they don't rely on me or another counseling student to be able to help them. But they would need us, but on some small situation they can handle them themselves. So that's what behavioral activation is. So the first thing is that they help clients engage in enjoyable activities. That's the goal of it. But at the same time, what it does is that it develop or enhance a problem-solving skill. Now, like I said, people lose interest in when they have depression. That's the classic symptoms, and that's what behavior activation really try to do is to a person's with depression stop doing the things they want to do. So behavior activation wants you to do those things you used to do, those things that you enjoy doing. That's the problem. You want to activate that behavior that you had before that was good. So what to do is, how does it work? So the therapist and the client will again work together, and they will schedule this activity where those enjoyable activities that the client used to like. So for example, say my client, now she felt she wasn't good enough, she was dumb, or she wouldn't pass the course, so she would come home and want to sleep all day. What doesn't Only thing that would get her out of bed probably would be school. Some days she probably doesn't want to go to school. So what we try to, and she said she used to like shopping once in a while. She was not a shopaholic, but she would go shopping once in a while. Those things she enjoyed. Visiting her friends or family, she enjoyed doing those things. Going to games with her significant other, that were things she enjoyed, but she didn't want to do those things anymore. She was sleeping long hours. So what we talk about was this: we schedule one or two activities where she will go out with her friends to shop. But now, you see, behavior activation for you to do activities has to be scheduled with somebody that can reinforce what needs to be done. So, say for example, a significant other who's going to be able to reinforce that behavior, schedule to go out to the mall to shop with him. And all the next thing we talk about are two things: go visit her family or friends with her significant other because he wants to reinforce that behavior. So there are two activities that have been scheduled because those are things that she was losing interest in. So she'll get up early, get ready with her significant other, and it will go to do those activities. Now, how do you know this whole thing works or so forth? Now, the process of this is that of scheduling the activity is to reinforce that enjoyment that she used to have. But another was to looking at obstacles, taking part in the experiences. So if she can overcome if she can do these things, she'll be able to overcome those obstacles that were keeping her from doing it. That's one thing, which is doing the things that she enjoyed. So what happens is, for me to know that this is effective or this has worked, the client we had is encouraged, and the client's acts, not really encouraged and acts also, to keep a record of everything, noting how she felt doing this whole enjoyment activity, going to the mall, to shopping, and what circumstances were. So how did you feel? How did it go? Are you happy when you were doing it? Did you sad? And so forth. Now, if it didn't go as planned, the client is encouraged to explore why. Why do you think it didn't go well? Maybe I was down, I didn't want to do it, or I thought I wasn't still up to the task. Whatever is on their mind. Why they think it didn't go well? And then they might also what are things they might do to change that thought process again, why I think it didn't go well. So we'll come back to the same cognitive restructuring, and then we can still be able to effectively get back to the root cause and change it again. So you see how both of them work hand in hand, class? Then we explain, like I said, explain why it did not go well again. So we have an understanding of why, if it didn't go planned, why it didn't go, explore ways that you could improve or enhance that experience. Now, by taking action to move towards a positive solution and a goal, that's what you do. You explore ways you can change it by taking action. So the patient that moves farther from paralyzing inaction that locks him or her inside a depression. So pretty much, the first thing is we schedule this activity. We go out. We take a note of how it went. If it didn't go as planned, why it didn't go, and explore reason why it didn't go well. And then we take action again to change that. So because if we don't do that, we get paralyzed inside depression, and that's what we don't want. So we restructure the way you think so you can have a healthier thought process, so that you'll be able to reactivate the behavior, activate the behavior that you didn't want to go about doing anymore, the activities you didn't want to go about doing anymore, so that If it doesn't go while you're activating, you can still be able to look at why it didn't go well, how you could change it, and ways that it could be changed so that you don't get paralyzed in depression. So class, this is the end of my little short video. I know it's about 20 minutes right now. I hope you learned a whole lot from this. Um, these are techniques that I use in a lot of research and empirical studies. So it's really supportive. It has a lot of grassroots info to support it. And I hope you learned from my little brief section. This was just a trial. I was just going to give it a shot, but apparently I'm enjoying doing this. So I hope to do more of these, and I hope you really enjoy it. Thank you very much, and have a blessed day. May God bless us all, and bless this nation, America.